Welcome to Infrastructure Matters, the podcast where we discuss infrastructure, asset management, fleet and public works with thought leaders from across the sector. I'm Marc Sibbald, Director of Fleet at IPWEA, and I'm guest hosting this special Fleet edition, recorded live at the 2026 IPWEA Fleet Conference. Before the regular listeners switch off, this episode isn't just for the fleet manager, it's for their boss as well. Fleet plays a critical role in delivering services to our communities, from waste collection and road maintenance to parks, utilities and public works. Put simply, fleet keeps teams and communities running. Today, I'm joined by Dean Calapai, CEO of IntelliTrac. Dean has spent decades working with councils and operational fleets, helping organisations use technology to improve safety, productivity, accountability and levels of service for their communities. In this conversation, we'll explore the history of IntelliTrac, how local governments are using in-vehicle technology for far more than tracking where an asset is, and how fleet teams are working with other departments to deliver better outcomes for their communities. So grab a cup of coffee, sit back and join us for a practical conversation on why fleet is no longer just about vehicles. It's about smarter services, stronger accountability and keeping communities moving. I'm excited because I'm with today's guest, Dean Calapai, CEO of IntelliTrac. Dean, welcome.
Thank you, Mark. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, Dean has spent decades working with councils and operational fleets, so I'm really excited to get his insights. He has helped organisations use technology, improve safety, and more importantly, improve levels of service for the communities. In this conversation, we're going to discuss the brief history of IntelliTrac because it's been going for many years. We're going to explore how local governments are using in-vehicle technology for more than just tracking where the asset is. And we'll share some practical examples of how teams are working with other departments to deliver better outcomes for their communities. So let's get into it. Dean, maybe if you can just start giving us a bit of history about IntelliTrac, letting us know, where you started.
Yes, certainly, Mark. Look, IntelliTrac started in 1987. I started the company. It was previously known as Novatronics. We were the pioneers in automotive security. We were the pioneers in keyless entry and immobilisation. And in 1996, I had a bit of a Kodak moment in the fact that OEMs were including keyless entry in their vehicles. So we started progressing to stolen vehicle recovery using GPS technology. And that's when we had a light bulb moment. We've always run a fleet of vehicles. Our service technicians were travelling around the country installing car alarms and later on GPS tracking. But what we found was the productivity increase by matching not only the vehicle data, but the human resource data. So the bottom line was that when we incorporated GPS tracking, knowing where the vehicle was, along with the data, the work order data, in the first month, our revenue doubled. And in the second month, it doubled again, just by efficiency increases by tying the vehicle asset with the human resource.
So you were your own test case, really. You worked it out in your own business that money could be made or resources could be more efficient.
Absolutely. I recall the bank manager calling me and saying, "What are you guys doing down there? What's changed?"
Yeah, wow. And that's probably a really good point to keep talking about because a lot of people think about telematics as just a dot on a map tracking an asset. They don't connect the two together. But in fleet, we talk about in-vehicle monitoring services or in-vehicle management services, and that really it not only tracks the vehicle, but allows you to do so many other things. Can you maybe describe the broader role these systems have in supporting councils with their operational needs?
Sure. Well, look, in councils, telematics has predominantly been adopted for safety and to measure utilisation of the asset. What we look at doing is not only measuring the utilisation of the asset and safety, but tying it into public works, measuring the service delivery and the efficiency of the human resource tied into that service delivery. So typical applications would be waste management, street sweeping, road grading, parks mowing, beach sifting, and the list goes on. but it's about tying the fleet asset to improving efficiency and productivity and monitoring the human resource and the level of service delivery.
Yeah, fantastic. Can you give us like an example of one of your customers? Because we've had many conversations where your customers have been able to use the fleet asset and the in-vehicle technology to actually deliver better levels of service. Have you got one example you can share?
Oh, look, I'm going to use I'll use waste management as a typical example. So, councils come to us, and there was one particular council where they were bringing waste management back in-house. So they had no idea. They came along to IntelliTrac, and we have our own GIS department. We collaborated with council's GIS department. We integrated property and rates data. And what we did was we planned out the routes in the way that this council would be collecting their rubbish bins. And we managed to save that council around 700 kilometres of travel per week.
Wow.
And that's just one facet.
Yeah, that's less risk, less time vehicles on the road, less fuel expense, less man hours. That's a significant ROI on the investment.
Oh, absolutely. I did the sums last night, and it was actually mind-blowing.
Yeah, wow. So when you're talking GIS data, now that's not a typical thing a fleet manager would talk about in their daily conversations.
Absolutely right.
So it means that fleet then needs to get across the organisation then, isn't it? It's about taking that technology and putting it into other departments. Have you seen that work well, where fleet sort of get out of their day-to-day of maybe just buying assets and go and talk to departments, how fleet can leverage or amplify what they're doing?
Yeah, look, generally what happens is fleet will go down their own path and, procure a solution, and then other departments will start utilising that solution and ask for more. And that's when we get called in to basically, look at GIS data, look at council asset points, look at the asset in the case of a garbage truck or a sweeper, and connect the relevant sensors so we know whether a bin has been picked up or whether a road has been swept. Or in one case with one council, we had water trucks fitted with sensors, flow sensors, so we could actually map out when a tree was being watered and how much water had gone into that tree.
Wow.
So it's just amazing what you can do with the technology.
Yeah, and that's just by opening up the fleet team to other departments, saying, hey, here's what we've got. How can you use it?
Absolutely. I was at a conference last week, and there was a procurement lady from Geelong speaking. Now, it had nothing to do with fleet, but what she was urging at the procurement conference was to look at the whole organisation and look at unmet needs. That was her term.
That's a great way to think about it.
It's a great term, yeah. Because as a fleet manager, and we run our own fleet, we have blinkers on. We focus on the asset. We don't focus on the whole organisation generally.
Yeah. So just, expanding that a little bit. So, we mentioned GIS data, but you can integrate the in-vehicle monitoring systems with like work order management and other asset management platforms, and even cameras as well, isn't it?
Correct. Yeah, so in the case of a street sweeper, for example, we do all the route planning, the round planning. We monitor percentage of service delivery. Previously, and we still have data terminals in the vehicle, so as the drivers are driving along, if there's a low overhanging tree branch or a block drain or some dump rubbish on the road, they just click a button on their terminal. It has a GIS location, and it can filter straight into their systems to create a work order. And we can see that work order through from, start to completion. Just recently, we've launched our IntelliRoads project, and we've been trialling that with the greater city of Geelong, where as the street sweepers are driving down the roads, AI technology is detecting potholes.
Are you going to fix that problem for everybody? Because I know people hate potholes.
Oh, absolutely. And it's just amazing how well the technology works and the AI that we've developed. So it will detect a pothole. It will then push it up into our solution. Council can view the image. They can filter on pothole sizes and depths and so forth. And then they can just click a button and say, yes, send this into our work order management system. But it actually gets better. Once it's in the work order management system, the next time that street sweeper drives down the road and detects that pothole, the system knows that it is in progress to be repaired, so it doesn't report it again. Once we get notification from the work order management system that the repair is completed, that's when the AI technology continues to monitor that particular pothole. And if it should open up again, it will once again create an alert.
Fantastic. And that, from a community service point of view, that's massive. People, not only damage to their own vehicles, but just the complaints about roads. We all complain about quality of roads.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And looking at the data, it's actually quite mind-blowing. So how over time you can actually see a crack in the road becoming a pothole.
Yeah, and a lot of our regular listeners to the podcast are the asset managers that maintain those roads, prepare plan to rebuild or repair those roads. So that's really important data for them.
So it's important for fleet to take this into consideration because the piece of fleet and plant basically becomes a data input into the overall ecosystem of what local government, for example, is trying to do.
Yeah, wow. So have you got any technologies or any stories where technology was originally introduced for a fleet purpose? Like you've just provided some examples, but more when the fleet manager has been surprised or the organisation's been surprised that it can actually do more, and it can actually help with compliance or planning, like we talked about from roads.
Yeah, so look, that's a common discussion. Normally, when we win a local government tender, we go in and we look at the deliverables that need to be met. But what we do is we work actively with council to say, well, look, we do have a pre-start module, which we can just turn that on for you. That's going to give you visibility on any unplanned maintenance issues that may be occurring. Or maybe coming up. So, by introducing more modules into telematics, such as a chain of responsibility modules, which we have, pre-start checklists, fatigue management, electronic work diaries, and so forth, we can build a whole ecosystem to assist fleet managers gain faster and clearer visibility into the data that vehicle is.
And it sounds like they can then flow into safety systems, other compliance systems, and so the whole organisation can get a view. And though we're talking about fleet-specific things with chain of responsibility, but chain of responsibility is about the whole organisation.
Oh, absolutely. And, with some of the AI technology that we're introducing, we can ingest toll road data, we can ingest fuel data, cross-match that with the telematics. We can provide some really fascinating exception reports, let me tell you.
Yeah, wow. Yeah. So in a few short minutes, I think we've actually made the business case for telematics or in-vehicle monitoring. It's definitely not just dots on a map. But why do organisations, or why do the fleet managers who can see the benefits, why do they face such a challenge from moving from basic tracking dots on the map to these more broader benefits?
Yeah, look, I think it's a legacy in the business, and I think it's the industry's fault where, the quick sell is telematics, dots on a map, and some basic reporting for utilisation and safety. I think taking it to the next level, the organisation needs to treat it as a digital transformation. It's no different to implementing a big piece of software because, effectively, telematics sooner or later will become a big piece of software, which will just be another data point for the organisation to work more efficiently. So it's no different to implementing an ERP or CRM system. It's not, we'll come in and we'll install 200 plug-and-play devices in your vehicles. Here's some reporting. Here's a couple of hours of training. Off you go. I am finding that particularly in local government these days, the departments, not necessarily fleet, but other departments are demanding more.
Yeah, so fleet really needs to be that business consultant or business advisor and get out there and say, this is what we can do.
Yeah, and the issue is, in all due respect, the fleet manager doesn't know what he doesn't know.
Yeah.
And we start talking about unmet needs, and it's really up to the other departments within council to knock on fleet's door and say, well, we're using your asset. It is a data point. We need to, be able to, have access to that data and see how it can help us deliver better service to our residents.
Yeah. So I mentioned at the start of this podcast, and we're just getting close to wrapping up now, but this podcast, I said, was for the fleet manager's boss, not the actual fleet manager. You mentioned fleet managers don't know what they don't know, and, without being controversial, I'd say the bosses know even less.
Yeah.
So what practical tips can you give that director of infrastructure or that depot manager that's maybe just lets fleet run on its own? What should they be doing? What questions should they be asking to get the value that we've just talked about?
Yeah, so it's a very good question because, as I said, they don't know what they don't know. So I think there has to be collaboration within the organisation, particularly waste cleansing or street sweeping, road maintenance, parks maintenance. Just 3 departments there, maybe even community services to basically collaborate and basically see the data that they want to get into their business units in order to make them work more efficiently. And, that basically, they're generally all using fleet assets. So, we have the fleet asset as a data point, you have the human resources, another data point, and you have the service that the council has to provide to the residents as another data point. And as a result, it's about merging those data points together to try and get the best value for money and improve the services that council provides to the residents. And
we certainly haven't got enough time to talk about it, but artificial intelligence is going to make that a lot. Like, if you don't have the data, you can't do anything. But by combining the data points, as you said, AI is now going to allow you to do more with it, isn't it?
Oh, it's just amazing. We have an AI team, and one of their first projects was this IntelliRoads project to scan for potholes. We're in the process of implementing data right through, implementing AI right through all of our systems, where it's going to be as easy as asking our AI agent a question about your fleet or about a particular work order, and it will come up with the answers. In terms of pool car booking solutions, AI will be able to predict how many pool cars are going to be out next Thursday and what pool cars you need, underutilised pool cars. It's just amazing what we have been able to achieve with AI. So, Mark, all I'm saying is stay tuned for the second half of this year, because it's certainly blowing my mind what I've seen our R&D department do, and I think it's just going to blow the industry's mind as well.
And that's just amazing, because you've been in technology for, 30, 40 years now. So if your mind's being blown, it must be amazing.
Yeah, it's just amazing. Stay tuned is all I can say.
Yeah, well, that sounds like a good point to end on, because we can leave the audience hanging there for maybe another episode. So it brings us to the end of the podcast, Infrastructure Matters. It's a special fleet edition, because we're recording it here at the IPWEA Fleet Conference, and we're looking forward for an exciting couple of days. So I'd like to thank Dean from IntelliTrac for sharing his experience and insights. The examples we discussed show how fleet technology can support better planning, stronger accountability, and improve services for the community. So, Dean, thank you for being our special guest.
Thank you, Mark. It's a pleasure.
And that brings us to the end of this special fleet episode of Infrastructure Matters, recorded live at the 2026 IPWEA Fleet Conference. A big thank you to Dean Calapai, CEO of IntelliTrac, for joining us and sharing such practical insights into how fleet technology can support better planning, stronger accountability, and improve services for our local communities. Today's conversation has shown that fleet is much more than vehicles on the road. With the right technology, data, sensors, GIS intelligence, work order systems, and cross-department collaboration, fleet can help councils understand what is happening in the field and use that information to deliver better outcomes for their communities. Before you go, we'd love to hear from you in our Spotify poll. What's the biggest untapped opportunity for fleet data in your organisation? Is it service delivery, safety and compliance, asset planning, or AI automation? To our listeners, thank you for tuning in. We hope this discussion has sparked ideas and strategies that you can take back to your own teams and organisations. Stay tuned for more conversations about infrastructure, asset management, fleet and public works. Don't forget to subscribe, rate and review Infrastructure Matters on your favourite platform. Follow IPWEA on LinkedIn for more updates and exclusive content. I'm Marc Sibbald, Director of Fleet at IPWEA, signing off, reminding you that in the realm of infrastructure, every detail matters.